Welcome to the Old Fly Guy Network, where we engage with those in general aviation, helping them make the skies safer and more enjoyable for all of us. And thanks for joining us and continue on the journey as we meet exceptional aviators across the country. I'm Wade, the Old Fly Guy. And today I'm in Searcy, Arkansas at the Searcy Regional Airfield with Nick Adcock of A Wing and a Prayer. Nick, thanks for having us in your airspace today and spending some time with us.
Yeah, thanks, Wade. I really appreciate you coming out. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. We spent some good time together. Nick has done a lot, and we're going to talk about all that. But Nick is he's a general aviation enthusiast. You know, he is a instructor. He's a DPE. He's a military aviator, and he's a commercial aviator. And he also partakes in the local FAA safety team here, the FAST team in the Little Rock area. So Nick's got a wide range of experience, and as you can tell, we're back in that general aviation hangar today talking about his journey and what he's, where he sees general aviation going in the future. So Nick, if it'd be okay, we're here in Searcy. How does Searcy fit into the equation of your journey in aviation?
Well, originally my family and I are from northern Louisiana. My dad, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, but he flew. He was a crop duster and CFI, did some charter work in northern Louisiana on the family farm, and somewhere about the mid-'80s he wanted a career change and decided to become a stockbroker. So he moved us all up here, and my family and I, my brother, my sister and I went to high school here in Arkansas, and I ended up graduating from the University of Arkansas. Did some time in the military, moved back, and my parents, they live in a town near here called Cabot, Arkansas. And Searcy came into the picture when Dad bought this twin Bonanza sitting behind us.
It's a beautiful plane.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah,
we want to give him a plug in for using his space today too. So
yes.
Thanks out there.
Thanks, Dad. So he bought the twin Bonanza, needed a place to put it, and it ended up at Searcy. And then during the COVID years, he built this hangar that we're in right now. So like I tell everybody, I mooch off my dad, and he lets me hang out in this hangar and flies airplanes. So.
Oh man, what a journey! So clearly, aviation is in your blood, and as that crop dusting experience, that's got to be kind of some interesting stories there too. But that's in your background that probably ignited some of that energy about aviation, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's definitely a piece of it. Like I said, Dad was a pilot, or is a pilot, and my grandfather on my mom's side prop dusted, was a CFI, flew a twin Bonanza with my dad, and then my grandfather on my dad's side was a private pilot on the 172 and the Taylor Craft and some other small airplanes, and then my great grandfather was a B-17 pilot back in the day, and then my mom was a flight attendant for Delta for a number of years. So yeah, it all kinds of
oh my gosh,
it runs through the family. Dad infected us early, and we never had a chance. So.
Yeah, B-17. We didn't talk about that one earlier, but that's pretty exciting. And I think you were telling me a quick story, kind of from the family side, that there's a relationship in flying the Bonanza and how your dad and your mom met.
Yes, yeah. So my dad was flying right seat in the twin Bonanza with my grandfather on my mom's side, and that's how he met my mom, flying the twin Bonanza, which is, I think, a large part of the reason he wanted to have one. So he got a great deal on this thing, and bought it from a guy up in New York, flew it down here, and he's been working on it ever since, and he's got it, running like a top now. So.
Oh yeah, beautiful. I'd like to kind of talk about some of the different stuff you've flown, but could you tell us a little bit about that first? I don't want to say that first flight, but that first solo flight, and how that got started, and of course from there how all kinds of places it went. But how did the first solo go?
Well,
and where?
So I knew that I wanted to fly for a living. I just didn't know how I was going to make that happen. So it happened at North Little Rock Airport. In fact, you told me when we met on a couple nights ago on Monday that you ended up at the Jet Center.
Yes.
So that Jet Center used to be called Mid-South Aviation way back when. at North Little Rock Airport. And I learned to fly at Mid-South Aviation. I soloed there at North Little Rock, and I worked on the flight line as a lineman at Mid-South, towing airplanes and gassing airplanes. So I learned to fly there, and I remember that day. In fact, in my office up at the FBO, I still have the cutout of the T-shirt that I was wearing.
Okay.
My instructor, his name I've lost track of him, but C.W. Simpson. CW, if you see this, give me a shout sometime. But yeah, I remember soloing a 152. Tail number was 4823 Lima, and I remember my dad, who hadn't flown for a number of years, was actually out there on the ramp watching as I soloed. So that meant a lot to me.
Man, I'm impressed that you still had the tail number too.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, good for you. So again, we're in the area where your aviation really started, for you personally. So maybe to go, in the aircraft you have flown.
Sure.
I don't know where you want to start, but I got to believe, looking at some of your stuff that you have online and whatever, you have a list of aircraft that's about that long. So be interested in that, and how you felt about some of that flying.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, I'll start out with the GA side. Like I said, learned to fly in a 152 out at North Little Rock Airport. Back then it's KORK. Now it was 1 Mike 1 back when I learned to fly there. So
okay.
Quite a ways back, but yeah, just a smattering of all the typical GA airplanes you would think about. 182s, obviously, twin Bonanzas, Barons, Aztecs, Apaches. I taught my son to fly, and at that time my dad had a Stinson 108, so I taught him to fly in a Stinson 108, a beautiful 1946 tail dragger with a wood prop. So, but Cherokees, Archers, just the standard.
Got a
there.
wide variety of general aviation. If we would go out to the ramp, you'd probably been in some version of it.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think so. There's still some things that are on the to-do list, but yeah. Yeah. And then
cool.
Military-wise, I started off in T-37s, which the Air Force has retired, but it's a twin-engine jet, which was nice. That's the first thing you get introduced to when you went through pilot training back then.
Okay.
I started out in the T-37, and then I went to the T-1. After I graduated pilot training, I went to Robbins Air Force Base down in Warner Robins, Georgia, and I flew the E-8C J-Star. So I flew that for about 4 years, and that was a meaningful time for me. I actually loved the airplane. It was a commercial 707 airframe that they sent to Lake Charles, Louisiana, and put a radar underneath so that it could track ground targets.
Okay.
And so I flew that in OEF and OIF, and then when that was done, I applied to the B-2 program and went up there in 2004. I got to fly the T-38 for a number of years in the B-2, and really I stayed, as far as the military goes, that was it. I stayed there for another 15 years. Minus a couple years for school and staff, and then retired from the Air Force in 2019 and started at my airline job a week later.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you were with the B-2. You were stationed at pretty much one location for
Yep.
that whole period, and I don't know. You said where was that again?
Whiteman Air Force Base in Knob Noster, Missouri.
Knob Noster, Missouri.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Yeah.
have to look that up. Okay, and obviously we haven't. Have you ever been to I've been to an air show, and you see the B-2. It looks pretty impressive, and it's one of those aircraft that's got a lot of security around it. Usually, you don't get to walk up under it and see what's going on. So, you flew that for how many years again?
About 15, minus a couple years for school and staff. I did some schooling up in Rhode Island, spent 2 years at the Pentagon, but the rest of the time I was at Whiteman flying the B-2.
Okay, and I had one of your friends tell me that you were I probably get this military term wrong, but you'll help me out, is in charge of the squadron at one time,
yeah,
or how's that work?
I was a squadron commander for about a year and a half or so, the 393rd Bomb Squadron there at Whiteman Air Force Base.
Which is all the B-2.
Yeah, it's the operational B-2 squadron, so the combat squadron that the B-2 has.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds like a pretty important job.
It was awesome.
It was,
Yeah, it was fantastic.
So congratulations
Yeah.
on that. Also, thank you for, your service and helping keep us safe.
Oh,
So thank
yeah,
you very
well, I
much.
appreciate it. Whenever someone tells me that, I always say, don't tell anyone, but I had a great time.
Yeah,
So,
well,
yeah.
it sounds like it worked out really well. I wanted to talk a little bit about, you mentioned your son,
Yep.
and I want to talk a little bit about your family in aviation and how do you, you got a hell of a legacy going here. So how are you pushing that forward?
Well, to take a step back, it's not just me. My brother, I went to Air Force ROTC up at the University of Arkansas. My brother graduated from the Air Force Academy.
Oh, okay.
And so he went on to, he flew KC-135s, T-37s, T-6s, and he got out of the Air Force after flying U-2s out at Beale Air Force Base.
Okay.
The gangly-looking spy planes.
Yeah, okay.
He did that for a number of years, and he also flies for Southwest. He's my younger.
It's a family affair.
It is. He's my younger brother, but he's a captain at Southwest now, and he reminds me of that around every turn. So, but yeah, he's a Vegas-based captain, so he flies, and like I was telling you earlier, my son Will, he's an instrument-rated pilot, and we're continuing on now. We're going to get him his commercial, and hopefully a multi-engine rating here pretty soon. Then try to get him hired on at a guard unit, and I'm secretly hoping that he ends up back at Whiteman so that I can go hang out with my friends.
Yeah,
up there,
that's great. Man, he's a lucky guy to have you around to help him in that training journey, because what you and I were talking before we got started about the value of experience.
Yes.
And there's really no substitute.
Yes.
And what you're bringing to his experience, I got to believe, is something unmatched. So I'm sure if he's watching, I want him to say he's a lucky guy.
I'll remind him that you said that. But yeah, I find it's easier to teach him because I feel like I can teach him by the numbers and be very strict with him, and he responds to that type of training.
Sure,
so he does very good with it.
I always, it's always an interesting relationship, father-son, and how that all works, and when you're doing that kind of situation. So it sounds like you got a great balance in that. And you have a daughter too.
I do. Yeah.
And is she in aviation at all, or thinking about it, or flies the right seat, or how does she go along with that?
Yeah, she'll fly the right seat, and she likes to go places and have aviation adventures. She hasn't really expressed that much interest in learning to fly just yet, but I'm going to keep chipping away.
Sure,
I think eventually she'll come around, but it'll just take a little while.
And I would imagine your wife is probably the anchor to all of that, to make sure that she's keeping everybody flying, and she's kind of the ground control, I would imagine.
Yeah, she keeps the glue together. The family stays extremely busy, and my wife, Kristen, definitely holds it all together. We would all be helpless without Kristen.
We would be without fuel, low on air.
It would be, and we'll get to this later, but my fight with cancer over this last year, she has been obviously the reason it was successful, I would argue. So
great. And we want to get to that. I wanted to talk a little bit more when we were talking about training. You're talking about your son. You do flight training, and you do DPE work.
Yes. Yeah.
And so how does that fit into your life now, both of those things? I know you said you're still doing a little bit of training. DPE is probably the bigger part of the equation.
Yeah, it's the much bigger part. Yeah, just because there's such a demand for it.
Oh, my God.
So really, since I'll be out away from my airline job for probably another year and a half, and so till then, I've been able to come up here to the airport. I have an office in the FBO, and I like to give, if I could, maybe a check ride a day.
Okay.
Maybe 3-4 days a week.
Okay.
And just try to keep the training pipeline moving. So.
Yeah, and I going through some of that myself recently. I mean, you're the commodity and the volume of DPEs must be sort of limited, because I know I had challenge getting lined up with someone. So your demand is probably pretty high, I would imagine, and you can probably keep that type routine going without a whole lot of trouble.
Yeah, it is, and I think I feel like anyway, as far as DP scheduling goes, I'm pretty easy to schedule because I don't have that other aviation job hanging over my head. Really, it's, if somebody contacts me, I could probably within
we can
2
work
or
it
3
in.
weeks. I can probably
Perfect.
work it in. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
What is your, I think we chatted off screen here a little bit about the DPE role and that mission and kind of the logistics of going through that, some of the challenges. What's, how's that all fit in for you in the role you have, and how do you feel? Because I think people would like to hear what's in your head about what's your objective when you take on that role and sit with someone.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll talk about it in terms of a typical day of giving a practical test. Yeah, obviously, I try to learn as much as I can about the applicant before they show up. So, what kind of flying are they going to do? What is their objective? Is it just to be a private pilot and more of a hobbyist, or is this a person who's moving down the road towards becoming a commercial pilot?
Okay.
Now the test is really, it's going to be the same, right? I'm going to base it on the Airman Certification Standards, and that's how I'm going to administer the test. But as far as how I do that, I can reassure all the listeners out there that nobody is going to be pulling for the applicant like the examiner is. I want every applicant to have a good experience. I want them to be successful on the test. Now, sometimes it doesn't work out that way, but that's just a reality of aviation. But I'm pulling for them, as I would think almost every DPE is, to get them through. So for me, a good successful day is to administer a test that's in accordance with the standards. And if I can choose the outcome, the applicant's successful, we all get to shake hands and high five. And I can be a very small part of their aviation journey, trying to accomplish their goals. So.
That's, I think, very important for everyone to hear, that your objective is success to start with.
Yes. Yep.
And so you're supporting that. There are standards, there are things we need to do, but you don't start off with any place other than success is where you're starting. And that's just important, because I've kind of hanging around the flight line and, having general, discussions. I think at times I've heard young pilots or aviators speak to, that fellow or that lady, and they're just trying to get me type of thing. And I don't,
far from
I think, that's not been my experience. And so I would share that with everyone else. But I think it's important to know, and I think it's a tough job. I think it probably is challenging, because you have to make some tough decisions, and probably saying no, like anything, is not an easy thing to do.
Oh yeah, so, it's not fun to be a part of the. Well, I don't think a part of the problem, but it's never fun to deliver the bad news.
Yeah, right.
But there are, and it's usually obvious when someone does not need to proceed on past a practical test. It's usually kind of glaring. So, but for the most part, when you sit down with me, I tell all the applicants, hey, I'm just going to sample some of the things that your instructors taught you to make sure it's within the standards that the ACS has. And I'm not going to get to everything. And it's, I trust that your instructor has taught you these things. I just need to sample what's required by the ACS and make sure that it's up to snuff, and then we'll move along. That's great. Yeah. Thanks for that recap, because if nothing else, I think you're going to help a lot of people understand that role. I hope so. Better. I hope so. Wing and a prayer. Where'd that come from? Well, what's that all about? Yeah, we talked a little bit about this, but really, as I was flight instructing and I started to do more and more of the DPE work, and this was back when I was also flying at the airline, I wanted an LLC or some kind of small business so that I could start to do other things besides just flight instructor, be a DP. So I decided to create the LLC, and really right now the LLC just offers airman testing and some flight instruction when someone wants it. But I'm hoping to grow it, and it really is just a tool for that, so that I can maybe grow into some other areas, and hopefully use it to do some good down the road. And how did the name come about? Well, where did you pick that up? So yeah, we talked a little bit earlier about the movie Always, which is if not, and it's on my list now. Always is so everybody you got to watch Richard the movie. Richard Dreyfuss, go watch Always. Okay. But there's a teledragger plane who's doing some he'll fly into a place and deliver some flowers and sing a song to if you pay him. But on the very top of his wing is Wing and a Prayer. So I was looking for a name for the LLC. My wife, Kristen, she knows that I love that movie. And she saw it and she goes, "That's the name." And I was like, "Yes, that sounds perfect. Let's just do that."
Yeah. So, well, great, good name, and it's exciting that as we talked a little bit again before we got started, you're kind of developing that platform for you to share your experience, which you have a lot of. Paying it forward, but also find opportunities to open other doors.
Yes.
And so, I think that's really great. As far as general aviation, I find it's interesting. You've flown a B-2 bomber, you've flown for Southwest and commercial side, but a lot of it gets right back to general aviation at the end of the day, where there's a lot of passion, and that's really what drove a lot of what I was seeing in my journey was those that were passionate about training, passionate about the work side of the aviation. But at the end of the day, I saw so many people wanting to either give back or give back through general aviation. And so that to me it's really funny how all those exciting things, which were probably really wonderful, and obviously they were a huge part of your life, general aviation is sort of that place you started and is a real foundation for, I think, your energy around the flying experience.
Yeah, there's just nothing better than being able to, do a little bit of flight planning, walk out to an airplane with your headsets and fly somewhere to get lunch. You know what I mean? It's just it's a great experience on the flip side of the coin with the military flying. You're going to spend hours of planning and, go out and the flying's great. It's awesome, but it's just so freeing be able to go out to a 172 and, take off and fly down to Louisiana, go see family, have something to eat and fly back.
Speaking of flying, I did want to make sure, well, first of all, I'll back up. We're going to talk about it again. But for everyone out there, make sure you visit, Nick at the Wing and a Prayer website. And we're going to make sure we get that link below to make sure you can take a look at that and see what he's doing. And if you're in Searcy or you need a DPE, I would hope you'd give him a call. But the plane behind us,
sure.
You had mentioned to me, again, I got a little bit of early, this was your dad's plane and a lot of history to it. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, so Dad, this is my dad's C-50 Twin Bonanza. He found it in Dansville, New York, and he had recently gotten back into aviation. Like I said, he took a I guess a sabbatical, if you will, from flying while he was kind of in his career as a stockbroker, and then he retired and decided he was going to start flying again. So he went out and he found the Stinson. He brought that back, and then within a year or two, he decided to expand things a little, and he found the Twin Bonanza.
Okay.
So he found the Twin Bonanza up in Dansville, New York, and my brother and I flew in and met him up there, and then we all flew it back together, and it's been in the family ever since. Dad, he retired, but he's taken on really a part-time job of maintaining the Twin Bonanza, which and you can look around pretty much, from the extra engine that's over there in the corner.
I was wondering about that. I see there's a couple engines over there that our audience won't see right now. They'll take our word for it that the hangar is well equipped.
So he scours the country to find these extra pieces, and if he can get them, he'll get them, just in case.
He sounds like he's the guy that if you need to find something, even to the point, again, everybody can't see this right now, but for this hangar, this beautiful hangar, he went out and found a used hangar door and repurposed it, and it looks, from my perspective, brand new. Yeah,
there was a lot of, grinding down to the metal and repainting and stuff like that we had to do, but yeah, Dad found that down in Shreveport and brought it back up here and had it hung up.
I think it's just an objective for him. Truthfully, as I listen to this, he's just working to keep you guys close and busy in his experience.
Yeah, he is. Obviously, I would never be anywhere as close to general aviation as I am now if it wasn't for my mom and my dad. given me this chance to do this. So.
Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
a big shout out there. I mentioned earlier, and I had the real privilege of visiting with you and some of your aviators earlier in the week at a I guess it was a FAA safety training, or I'm not sure if I got the.
Yeah, that was actually
a smash.
Seth. Yeah, well, it's called the Smash because it's the second Monday of the month meeting, and it's the Arkansas Flight Safety Cooperative, and that's what Seth, and you've met Seth Lake. Seth got that started and maintains it now, and makes sure that on the second Monday of every month at the local EAA chapter at the North Little Rock Airport, there's a meeting where he'll go over some type of safety topic, whether it's analyzing an accident report or going over the recent changes with the FAA Reauthorization Act. You pick it. He'll just run that to ground, and he has a great audience that, I mean, Bruti, you saw it. It's pretty good. It's every month more and more people show up, and he works in coordination with Heather at the local FSDO. Hello, Heather, if you're seeing this.
Yes.
Heather does a great job. You saw her. She's very enthusiastic.
Yeah, she had, there was a number of stories, Heather. I enjoyed them all. So there was a what I would call a very spirited group.
Yeah, and I think it's important to point out that she doesn't have to be that involved, right? I mean, she's a government employee, but she wants to come out and give back in those type of environments. So we're grateful.
Yeah, well, I just kind of part of, I'm learning, I learn a lot from these conversations, and the theme of those in aviators, and there was a full spectrum. I mean, I sat next to fellows that talked about they were just working on their IFR, all the way to some that had been into their, we'll call it aviation careers and beyond. And and I learned a lot there. So I'm going to do my best to keep up with that type of stuff. Even it's inspired me to look into some of that locally. Speaking of safety, I got to believe with the hours and the experience you've had, there's got to be one or two that, with all the planning and all the experience that maybe went less than perfect. And is there anything that comes that you might be able to share with us that, and what you took away from it?
Yeah, sure. I'll start out with, I mentioned earlier that a couple times a few times we've flown the Twin Bonanza down to the Bahamas.
Okay.
Right. So the year before I was diagnosed, we took a trip down there, and we brought along, it was my dad and I and my son and my sister and her family. And on the very first leg of that trip, we filed an IFR flight plan to some place in Alabama, and now, for the life of me, I cannot remember exactly which airfield we filed to, but it was supposed to be VMC, but we filed anyway just because sometimes it's easier to fly on an IFR flight plan. So we're descending into this airfield that I can't remember the name of down in Alabama, and my son and I are sitting in the seat, and he points to a symbol on the Garmin. And he said, "Dad, what's that symbol right there?" And I was like, "Well, that's a tornado." And I looked at that and I said,
"I don't know if I know what that one like."
And it's on finals. I said, "Obviously, we're not going there anymore." So we diverted, and I had, I wasn't. After we filed, I wasn't required to carry an alternate, so I didn't file an alternate. I hadn't really thought about an alternate, so I just picked a place. I'm like, let's go up there. The weather looks good. We'll go there. And we went into Jasper. It was Jasper, Alabama, and it was at nighttime, and it was, a VMC, but I'm backing it up with an instrument approach because I'm an airline guy, and that's what we do, right? So I'm looking at this instrument approach. I'm looking outside as we fly in here. The weather's clear, like I said. As we're descending down, I noticed that on the approach plate it says not authorized at night. And I'm like, well, that's awesome, Nick. Way to go. And as I'm shooting this approach, we come down final and we start to sink into the runway. And I'm like, I wonder why they don't let you do this thing at night. And about that time, I saw the hills rising up on the side that I really had not seen before then. So we landed there. We landed at the airfield. There is no FBO. There is a shack that's full of trash that probably should have been emptied, but there's no phones, there's no flight planning. There's no Uber in that town at midnight. So, and we had my sister, my brother-in-law, and their infant, little guy named Ray.
Oh my God! You had a full load.
Yeah, we got a full load, and we cannot find a way to get to any hotel, much less we don't know where the hotels are. Nobody, my sister had signal on her cell phone. So after waiting about an hour, not knowing what to do, my sister calls the police, and so two police cars show up. Thanks again, Officer Snow, if you ever see this. But they roll up, and Officer Snow looks at us, and she goes, "What in the world are you guys doing out here at midnight?" And I'm like, I'm asking myself that same question. And the answer to that is I did not plan properly. So I'll tell you what, from then on, and another theme for that whole trip was we diverted on every single leg trying to get to the Bahamas because of weather. But after that first one, I learned, hey, if I'm going to pick it, not only am I going to pick an alternate, not only is it going to legally qualify, but I'm going to research the FBO, the local hotels, and everything else to make sure that it is a real, honest-to-God alternate that I can go to and get some service and not have my my infant nephew riding in the back of a police car try to get to the hotel. So I learned a lot from that one. Now, I probably shouldn't, I probably should have known that, but it worked out great.
Well, I mean, that's good stuff. Thanks for the honesty also, because I think that, we are in a business of continuous learning.
Yes.
And, I guess the word of the day usually is situational awareness.
Yes.
And what we're thinking about and being prepared. So part of this is that, that safety theme and talking about that being human has its challenges, and sometimes we slip up a little bit. We like to think that all of the safeguards put out there for us, if we follow the rules, pretty much cover us.
Yeah.
But that's a great example of, kind of like it's probably some of the simple stuff that then I got this covered, and to, to have that. And I think probably my guess is that the challenging point was you said your sister and her infant, dealing with your sister going, hey, thanks a lot.
Oh, to say that I felt bad was a gross understatement, but, it happens.
Yeah, it happens. So, sis, if you're listening, he feels bad about all that.
Yeah, I do feel bad. Sorry,
Shannon. Let's talk about, a serious topic that you shared with me, and you were just talking about it, and you said you had some health issues, and the great news is you're doing well. But I don't know if you would want to share a little bit of that, or
yeah, sure. How
that influenced your journey and your faith and your passion, and how flying may have been some support in that.
Sure, yeah. As far as my faith goes, it's always been strong, but nothing like it is now. And I'll start off with, if we go back in time a little bit to December, really November of 2023. The whole month I was just feeling sick, right? And my doctor, my primary care manager, said, you probably have walking pneumonia,
Okay.
And, I mean, it was kind of this type of weather, so it's not unusual, but it just wouldn't go away, and I started to feel a little bit better. I did some airline flying over Thanksgiving. I went on a Thanksgiving trip and feeling not great, but not that bad. And I get back from that, and I steadily get worse. And around December the 7th, I remember I gave an ATP check ride out here, and the guy asked me, he goes, hey, do you mind helping me pull this Apache out? And I'm like, well, this is going to be tough, because I figured, I learned I was getting sick because I worked out quite a bit. I ran, things like that, and I was having trouble running. I could get to like a mile, and then I just couldn't do anything. So to do anything that requires physical exertion was killing me, to include pulling an Apache out of a hangar. So pulled Apache out, I got winded, and we went on, flew the check ride. I continued feeling worse and worse, and I did, I'm fooling myself. I'm thinking, surely, as long as I'm sitting down, I'm okay. I can function okay. So I can still keep working. And finally, as I was, considering going out the door on another Southwest trip, I asked my son, because I was feeling tired. I was like, Will, can you load that bag in my truck for me? Because I'm just tired, And I had a trip starting the next day. I was going to commute to Dallas, start a trip the next day. And finally, my son sat down on the edge of the table, and he looked at me and he goes, "Dad, you're being a terrible example for me right now because I know that you don't feel like going to work and you're trying to do it anyway." So I remember distinctly him and my wife sitting there, and they were right. I looked at myself in the mirror, and I was the color of my white shirt. My skin was. So,
Okay.
a day after my birthday on December 11th, I went into the doctor, and they said, "Hey, it's probably still walking pneumonia, but just in case, we're going to run a CBC." And the only reason, really, they ran the CBC is because my wife, who is kind of a force, if you know her, she said, "You are going to run a CBC on him." And they did, and about 20 minutes later, they called and they said, "Go straight to the ER. Your white blood cell count was up around 100,000, which is, most of the time normal is like 4 to 5.
Oh, wow.
Right. So
Okay.
they knew something was wrong
Wasn't
with
right.
me. Yeah. So on December the 11th, after, 12, 13 hours of all kinds of different tests they ran on me, they finally came in and said, "Hey, we think you have acute myeloid leukemia." So, AML. And that's where it started. That led to a lot of chemo and, learning, like we said earlier, it was a shock because up until that point, I'd been flying since 1995. And now I'm at a state where I didn't know if I would ever actually fly again, because I wasn't familiar about, getting back up on, getting my medical back after a diagnosis like that. So, that was a shock. The chemo was a shock. Not flying for the airline was a shock because I didn't really know that much about how the disability plans. I didn't.
Right.
I never.
It's not one of those things
I never even thought about
yeah,
it.
right.
I was in good shape. I was just got out of the military. I was in pretty good shape, working out all the time. I thought, "Nah, this will never happen to me," and sure enough, it did. And after a bunch of chemo, June of that year, I got a stem cell transplant. A guy in England. I don't know his name. They won't let me know his name, but I know he's 27. He lives
Okay.
somewhere in England, and he has some really, really top shelf stem cells, and he let me have them, and so far they have saved my life. One day, a year from this summer, a year from this June, they will let me know his name, and I plan on going to England and meeting up with him. And
Oh my gosh!
yeah, and
what an experience!
Oh yeah, so that, you mentioned about my faith that boosted my faith through the roof, and I know that some people listening will be like, "Well, sure, you thought you were going to die." Yeah, I did. I mean, I was, because a couple years ago, AML was mostly fatal. So,
Wow.
I did think I was going to die. So, when you lay in a hospital bed at night thinking about what's going on, you do that a few times, and it's going to do something to you. And for me, it really boosted my faith, and that's just continued. It drives me now. It keeps my head level during the bad times, and I'm very thankful for it. So.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. And it's a very personal side of your experience. And I know if your wife and family are watching, hope they do get a look at this. He's a lucky guy. And I'm glad to hear that it's working out. And not only that, but just while we talked about earlier, you are flying.
Yes.
And you are taking those things back, and you're taking your life back one step at a time.
Yes.
And getting those things back in play. So great news. I kind of takes the hair up on my side, a little bit. That's because we all think that way, and we all need a little wake up call every day, and that kind of thing to say, wow, maybe think about this a little bit.
It can be gone in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
It can be gone in a heartbeat.
So we want to, this is part of the life experience, all the good stuff, and you put all that all together, and you've made all that work. Where do you, we kind of talked about, winging a prayer, and you're using that to leverage the future. Any thoughts on, with your experience in general aviation, just where do you think it's going? Is it in a good place? Do you see it? Any thoughts? Maybe a combination question, where you think it's going, and what advice would you give to other young people or that want to get into aviation? What's some thoughts on that and how they might go about that?
To answer the first part, where I want to take Winging a Prayer now is I want to, get this Cessna behind me here, this 182
It's pretty. I wish we could go up today, but we're totally
it's
IMC. We ain't going today.
No, today's not a good day for it. But I want to get this upgraded, and then I do want to use Winging a Prayer as a conduit to try to do some things for Pilots for Christ, Angel Flight, something like that. But
Wonderful.
I really want to fly. Considering my experience now, I really want to get involved with flying cancer patients around as soon as I can. So and I'm not there yet. It's not, as of the day we record this, it's not anywhere near where I want it to be. But that is my large push, my big muscle movement that I'm trying to do now.
Maybe tell me we're going to get back together when you do that.
I love that, yeah.
And we would maybe figure out how to get in the plane and do a follow-up and show that success.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. That would be awesome.
So you're going to continue with that?
Yep, that's my goal, to continue to that and just do other fundraising type things to give back to those types of organizations, right? And then as far as young people getting into aviation, I mentioned earlier I have a soft spot for people who don't have any, relation with aviation. They don't know how to get into it because they don't have any family members. I was very lucky. I was surrounded by it, and my kids are very lucky because they're surrounded by it. But there are some folks out there who just don't even know where to start, and I would also like to use Winging a Prayer to figure out how to reach out to those folks. And maybe, I can't fund people's flight training because I just don't make enough money for it. But I can at least hopefully tell you, where to go to get started and try to advise you to the best of my ability along the way. And obviously I don't have all the answers, but I know a thing or two and I'm willing to help out. So, I'd love to do that.
That's great. And so I think that part of the message there is, is those who get a chance to watch this and interested in, contacting Nick is, look into Winging a Prayer, and maybe there's somebody in the area that you might just make a difference with.
Yeah.
And so sounds like there's an offer there if somebody wants to get involved, maybe reach out and get some advice on how that goes. So
of course, yeah. My phone number, email address, it's all there, and I will call you back if you call with it. Obviously, I don't need to make any money from anything. Just call me, and I just like to have a conversation about it.
Yeah. Two things. One, I think we sort of covered it, but what is there anything in particular that just keeps you motivated in the general aviation arena? Is there anything special that I don't know, what keeps the fire going? You've got so much going, and so I think we've sort of probably answered that, but it just makes me wonder.
Sure, yeah, and I knew you would ask that, and I really thought about the answer to this question. And I'll be honest with you, I've just always had a passion for it that never really, I guess, goes away. And what I really love about aviation is that you can think that you're doing really good, and then and you can realize, hey, you know what? That stuff that I knew like the back of my hand 6 years ago, I've started to slip on that, or it's changed, it's updated, and now I need to go back and relearn it. So what I really like about aviation is just the continual learning that you have to do to be a safe and effective pilot. It never ever stops. So really, it's a lifestyle. It's not really a job. It's not just it's got to be more than a hobby if you're going to do it safely. It's a way of life, and I think that's what keeps me coming back. Yeah,
and we did kind of hit on that before we got started. It's you're always learning.
Yeah,
and I think that's a great. One of the things that young people getting into this, you don't just learn it and put it in books and put it aside.
Yep.
It's to your point. With the hours you still demonstrate, you have to stay on top of the game.
Yes.
And so that's great. Is there anything that is there a life lesson or what does Nick live by? If we leave kind of with a message, what is that? What do you follow?
Well, I mean, we talked about my faith already, so that is the driver. And as far as aviation goes, what I would tell those who fly is, like, if you look at the number of flights that you're going to be allowed to take over the course of your life, there is a finite number of times that you're going to get to take off, and you're going to get to land and look out the window of an airplane and have a great landing or a terrible landing. I mean, it happens to everybody. But there's only so many times that you're going to be able to do that. And each time that you fly, that number gets decremented by one. So with every flight, with every aviation experience, I would ask that you give it the deference that it's due, because it may end in a heartbeat, and you need to appreciate every single moment, because I hate to use the word mundane, but if you do it day after day after day, you can have a tendency just to take it for granted. Mm-hmm. And then something happens in your life, like happened in mine, that it gets taken away from you, and then you miss it. So I think what I've learned is that I will never ever take that for granted. And you'll catch me on every flight, whether it's an instructional ride, me flying personally, me giving a practical test. You'll see me at least a couple times during the flight looking out the window, trying to soak it all in, because I'm trying to implant that image in my brain, and the feeling, everything from the way the aircraft feels, to the smell of the 100 low lead, to the sound of the engines, to the view that I'm looking at, and I'm trying to soak that all in so I can tattoo that in my mind, so that if I'm ever laying in that hospital bed again, and I am wondering, will I ever get to fly again, at least I have those experiences that are in there. That's
pretty strong message.
Yeah.
Nick, thanks for that. Anything else that's on your mind that you'd like to share with the group?
No, other than to say thanks to you. I love the mission that you're embarking on right now. I think that it's needed in aviation. I think that it's going to be sought out, and I appreciate what you're doing, giving guys like myself a chance to talk about what got them there, and giving me a chance to talk about my family, and give a nod to my mom and dad, and my wife and kids, and also for all of my military family, which is really the other half of the family that I didn't bring up. They're not my blood family, but they are. There's not a one of those guys that I served with that if they didn't call me on the phone right now and want something, I'd do it. I wouldn't even ask questions. I would just start driving. So to be able to at least mention them and tip my hat to them, tell them I love them, and be able to tell my story, I appreciate it.
Oh, well, thanks. I said earlier, I think I get more out of this than everybody else, just for just the knowledge I gained, and it's folks like you that drive me to do this, because you're humble, you're honest, you tell the story. You told us some stuff today that was maybe not easy to talk about, but you talk about success, and you talk about the things that have happened for you. So I'm honored to be here, and I truly appreciate, I'm going to say, hats off to your dad again for letting us use his hangar and you and your time. I appreciate that. So thank you very much
for the
time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
The Old Fly Guy Network would like to thank Nick and his dad for his time and the use of his studio hangar space in today's conversation. And please take the time to visit Nick at the Wing and a Prayer website, where you can learn more about the services available and how to connect with Nick. We have provided the links to his work here and below, so make a note and stay connected with Nick and his mission. Please help support the Old Fly Guy Network by subscribing to the channel so you don't miss any new aviation conversations. And consider hitting that thumbs up button to let us know that you like what we're doing and encourage others to join in the conversation. We appreciate your comments and feedback to help us seek out new aviators and journeys for future episodes.